cooking here? Well, it's dream to transform India. In the realm of culinary exploration and cultural preservation, Mr. Rakesh Raghunathan stands as a luminary, bridging the past and the present with his profound understanding of India's diverse gastronomic heritage. A celebrated food historian, visionary, and a storyteller, Mr. Raghunathan has dedicated his whole life to unearthing and narrating the rich tapestries of traditional Indian cuisine, ensuring that the flavors of our ancestors resonate with the present generation. Through his celebrated work, he has brought to life the stories of India's past, making them relevant and resonant today. Please join me in welcoming the man who brings India's culinary heritage to life, Mr. Rakesh Raghunathan.
That has to be the cutest introduction ever.
It was very nice. That's why I didn't want to introduce you. I don't want to be the second best. I only want to be the best. So, there's one reality of life, my friends. We work so hard. All we want to do is when we work hard is go to a few places and have some nice food. How unfair is this life when he's traveling and eating? That's his work itself. Very unfair life. Was this ever planned, Mr. Rakesh? Welcome to SSVM. Welcome to Coimbatore. It's, of course, a great vibe that you're seeing out here. Your initial thoughts on what you've seen so far, and then we dive into your personal space. Your thoughts on SSVM, what you see so far, and Coimbatore?
I think what I'm seeing is truly the future of India. I wish I studied in educational institutions that provided this kind of access.
Pinch me. Same pinch. Even I wish. I was just trying to convince them. You must take people 30 and above who look like 25, but they are actually 30 and above.
Dude.
Pushing it. I know. Yeah.
It's great, the kind of exposure that kids get in today's context, the kind of topics that are discussed. It's earth-shattering, if I can put it that way, for them to be even exposed to things like this, because it gives them a different perspective. It gives them an option to choose a career stream, because when you graduated, you only had finished school rather. You could do BCom, you could do engineering, you could become a doctor. Right? But this kind of an access, this kind of exposure, I think, is something that is very, very welcome. Because kids today are also wired very differently, and that is important.
Fantastic. I come here as well to be wired differently, and every time I come here to be rewired, I get shocked. There's so much more to learn. There's so much more to learn. But you call yourself, I'm not a typical influencer. You travel the south of India. You explore food, culture, and give us seamless stories of all this together. Now, such a wonderful idea can't be planned. You're not from SSVM, so you can't plan such a thing. How did this come by? Did this happen by chance?
So I was a very, very curious kid even growing up, and it was also a classic case of gender stereotyping in my case, where they let me play tennis and they let my sister sing. It should have been the other way around. I was jumping and saying, please let me sing. I wanted to be in the kitchen cooking. I was the one peering over my grandmother when she was cooking, when my mother... For me, it was that curious thing when they brought out these old antique vessels in the house, they would polish it. And, it's almost like an act of drama when they were making food, especially for festive occasions, right? Ours was a large household, joint family. So I had that visual beauty behind food from very, very young. And I was genuinely, I enjoyed eating also. I still do. So I think it hit me hard when I went to the US to study. I was a pretty decent cook even then. My roommates had a blast when they were with me. But I think the point that I had all the ingredients that my mother also had, but I was still not getting that particular taste. Right? And this was I met so many people from different nationalities. We would discuss this threadbare, we would go food hopping. And everybody said one common thing, there was this food that has been passed, it goes away with the previous generation. Everybody will say, oh, my grandmother, my grandfather,
They didn't
my
say
mama.
mother's love, it's your mother's love in the food. But there's a lot of love in food preparation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they all said it was going away with the previous generation, and that kind of stuck in my head. Either document panano. You have to, document it in some way, because these are rich culinary traditions and they have such beautiful stories. So I came back, I got into the food business, only to realize that I would be doing things in the food business the way I'm doing now, which is, setting up restaurants, talking to chefs, being in the kitchen, development and all of that. But this was way beyond the times of any of these online deliveries came. But it did not go the way I had imagined, because it was more to do with man management. So it was literally seeing my own baby go down. I took it in a sportive way, I would think. That's when I started traveling to research and document.
1 second. So this is the first lesson or first step, which was a failure. We've always been speaking that success is what we want, but failure is what we should face. And here he starts off with a story of failure. Clap your hands, because this was the beginning of something very, very great. And what we're going to hear now is his greatness.
So I started traveling, and in one of those trips is when I went to Tirunelveli, and it was the most beautiful time of the year. Harvest was a bountiful harvest. It was lush and green everywhere, and the farmers were rejoicing that year's harvest. They were singing and they were cooking something yummy, which I went and peeked into. They said, come sit with us and enjoy this meal. So as I ate that meal, they were actually telling me the story of that particular recipe and why they do it. It's a very profound experience for me, because when they cook that particular recipe, irrespective of your social hierarchy in the village or in the society, everybody pooled in resources and brought something. So someone brought rice, someone brought vegetables, someone brought firewood, someone brought the vessels, and they cooked it together and they ate it. And that, they told me, was the story of the Kootanchoru. And this was the moment where I thought, this is what I should be doing, documenting culinary history, traditions, practices. Because food, at the end of the day, in today's political scenario, is used to polarize people. But food actually brings people together.
And that's what you're doing via your wonderful videos. Food is an act of bonding. Food is an emotional indulgence, but also brings people together. They also say food is medicine. And sometimes they say the South Indian food, and you've also spoken about it, the South Indian food is something that can be very, very good medicinal for your health. And Dr. Sir, you were saying this yourself about how good food help you cure and recover energy. We always feel that, when we are happy, we want food. When we're sad, we want food. When we're sick, we need food to recover. Talk to me about the findings and the strength of some South Indian food that maybe we don't know, some ingredients we don't realize. But you have seen that, you have explored it, and you have documented it.
So South Indian food, and even Indian food for that matter, in today's context, there's this whole emphasis on, plant-based food and micro-regional influences. Indian food, and especially South Indian food, is a classic example of that. There is a very, very beautiful Tamil proverb that goes by Unave Marundhu, Marundhe Unavu, which is food is medicine and medicine is food.
Fantastic. That's so true. We realize it not in wellness, we realize it in illness.
Yes. Back in the day, I'm talking about several centuries ago, we had a ton of indigenous rice varieties in India alone, right? When rice was discovered, it was Southeast Asia. It was a wild grass that was domesticated and then brought into, it spread like wildfire. But this is an open question. How many varieties of indigenous rice did you think in India we had?
74.
74? It feels like an auction house now.
It looks like that. What's the answer? Do you know?
We had more than 350,000 varieties of indigenous rice.
Whoa. And today?
Today, not much is known about them, but each and every rice variety had a different length, different color, shades of white, shades of brown, shades of red, shades of black, and each of them had nutraceutical properties that could cure ailments. Even today, the Navara rice that is in Kerala, if you go to these Kerala massages, the poultice is filled with the Navara rice because it has the therapeutic properties that can heal your skin. So the first thing when you get diabetes, a doctor will tell you, stop eating rice. You can stop eating rice, but switch to an alternative rice is something that they'll never say.
In today's world, diets are so complicated. They tell you go for keto diet, paleo diet, like glucose-free diet, all of that. When I was in school, we learned something which we had to follow very strictly for everybody. It was called a balanced diet. Today, kind of lost. So where's that word balanced diet? And tell me about what should we be bringing to our plates which is missing. For the youngsters today, food is an essential. Food is energy. Food is health. So what is the kind of food you would like to see on the plate of youngsters?
I think if we are able to replicate the food that our ancestors ate and they put together even by 5%, we would be in a better place. I mean, take the example of festive occasions. Take the examples of temple prasadams, right? It's one of those examples, it is one of those food recipes that is a classic example of eating seasonally. Take Ramanavami, for example. One of the prasadams that is given is something called a panagam, which is water, there's jaggery that's added, there's dry ginger powder, there's cardamom. And when is this Ramanavami? In peak summer, and this beverage cools your body down. Adi Masam that just got over, the ragi kood that is made, which is a finger millet porridge that is fermented and served. Again, in peak summer, it cools your body down. Right? It is gut friendly, fermented. I mean, you have so many things that today talk about great gut health and all of that. But we had all of this. Today, it is coming back to us in a fancier, it's almost like saying old wine in new bottle, but it's coming back.
I'm glad it is. It should come back in more vigor. But as we move on and talk about your travel, they say everything starts from home. As a master chef, who cooks in your house?
My mom.
Is she the better cook?
Undoubtedly, she's the better cook.
We have our next guest for our Conclave 25. His mother will be coming. Okay, Mr. Rakesh, take me through the journey of travel and food. What were the places you went to and you saw that this food is not in the wholesale markets, is not commercialized, and maybe there is a way, there's a potential to bring it back and you're trying to do it yourself. So take me through the combination of storytelling, places, and plates. Let's get that together.
So one of the things that fascinates me the most when exploring food and talking about it is food from two ends of the spectrum. One is food made in sacred kitchens or temple prasadams or any sacred offering across faith. The other is food made by the indigenous tribal communities. The temple offerings obviously came from a lot of abundance and opulence, whereas indigenous communities, it was with what was given to them or what they were left with, right? And each of them, what they put to use and made things out of that is a different story altogether. So for me, in every thematic presentation I do, in every food showcase that I organize, where I travel, I tell this story. Because every single item that goes into our body has a story to tell. Every recipe that we savor is a spoonful of history. I think that is what needs to be conveyed to people, because it could be a Pallipalayam chicken, it could be a Puliyodare, it could be a Venpongal. Everything has a story behind it.